Namaste. Why is India also called Bharat? In the Vedas, this land was called by two names. That is Jambudvipa, because it is a large semi island, and second one is Aryavarta, because this was called or believed as the land of the Aryas. And no, Arya doesn't mean the race or that which is the interpretation of the Nazis, but actually it means the land of good people. However, as we go into the Valmiki's Ramayana and Vyasa's Mahabharata, which came after the four Vedas, that is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, the land of Jambudvipa and Aryavarta is often addressed as Bharat. Now, why this be so? Thankfully, in the first chapter of Valmiki's Ramayana, as well as the Adi Parva, that is the first chapter of Vyasa's Mahabharata, has a mention to a great king called as Bharata. He was called as a Mahantam Raja. In Vedic Sanskrit, Mahantam is made of two words, namely Mam, or the bodily self, or ego, and Hantam, the end. Only that person was called as great in the Vedic precepts who was not egoistical and one who worked for the welfare of the others. Now, this is a contrast to the interpretation of the Western people where Alexander is called the Great. And what did Alexander do? He didn't build an incredible empire. He didn't really help people find peace or prosperity. He just built a one large landmass, which, as we all know, perished moment he died. So, story of Bharat, he was the first king who united this large landmass. But that was not considered as his greatest achievement. He was actually revered for a very different reason. And this is the story. Bharata had three wives and three sons from each of these three wives, a total of nine sons. In Vedic precepts, the life was divided into four stages or ashramas. These are Balya or the childhood, Brahmacharya or the age of learning, Grihastha or the age of a householder, and Vanasprastha or what we can today better understand as a retirement age. And by the age of 60, or what we also call in Vedic Sanskrit as Sashti, these people, Vedic people, preferred to relinquish all their power, all their wealth, and even relationship and seek a life of a recluse hermits. When Bharata knew that his time for retirement was coming, he decided to see who among his sons would be his best successors. And he began to interview them. And when he interviewed them, he realized that none of these nine sons were worthy of his succession. And this made Bharata extremely apprehensive. And he wondered what will happen to his people, his land, once he has relinquished the power. He tried to explain his predicament to all his ministers and wives and his friends, but he couldn't find a credible solution to the problem. So, in those days, all Vedic kings had what we call as Rajagurus. Raja means the king, and Guru means the mentor. So, a mentor to the king. The mentor of Bharata was Bharadwaja, and he decided to visit his royal mentor. And unlike today's mentor or so called gurus who live in a fancy ashrams, driving the best cars, living the grand life, and calling themselves as hermits, these Rajagurus lived far in the forest, away from the people. They had nothing to do with the capital, they were not a part of the cabinet, and Rajaguru was mostly a nominal but an highly influential title because the king, when he couldn't believe his own people, he chose to go to these Rajagurus to find an answer. So when he went to the place of Rajaguru, he explained his Rajaguru was Bharadwaja. And Bharadwaja was the first known author of Arthashastra. So he was an extremely dexterous and wise advisor to Bharata. And Bharata said, "Listen, king, the problem that you are facing is an extremely unique one. No king has ever gone so far as to see which of his sons would be desirable to succeed him. You not just did that, but now are even concerned because you believe that these 9 sons are unworthy to be your successor. This is an unusual situation. But remember, if you want a solution, you should always think with a calm and a rational mind. And it is not easy. So, why don't you stay here for a few days? And once you have calmed down, then think of a solution. Bharata agreed and he decided to stay there for a couple of days. While he was there, it so happened that he came into contact with one of a young boys who had come to Bharadwaja for education. And across his interaction with this young boy, somehow, in the end, he decided to make him his successor. So he took him along with him back to the capital and he announced to the entire cabinet and people that this young boy will be his successor. Now, everyone was up in arms. The young princes were planning on rebellion, the ministers were not quite sure what is going to happen, so they were anxious. The wives were totally unhappy, and yet Bharata decided to go with this decision. People said, but he is not even your blood. This was a time when recited a Vedic axiom, Janita Chopaneta cha yastu vidyam prayaschati annadata bhayatrata cha panchayate pitarasvata. Janita, one who gives you birth. Chopaneta, one who gives you the yajnopavit or the sacred thread at the beginning of your life as a learner. Chayastu vidyam prayashyati, one who gives you the knowledge, your teacher or guru. Annadata, one who gives you the food. Bhayatrata, one who protects you. Panchayate, these 5 are equivalent to father. And Bharata said that I may have not given him birth, I may have not given him a yajnopavit, I may have not given him the education, but still I am the king and I have given him protection and I have provided for his welfare. So, by that standard, this boy is as much as my son as my own sons. The legend has it that this young boy, whose name was Bhumanyu, succeeded the throne of Bharata after he relinquished his power at the age of 60. And he went to become a great king who justified the decision by his actions. A father disowning the claim of his own sons for the throne because he believes that they were incompetent and instead searches and finds a person worthy to be on the throne is in itself a great quality, a great action. This is why the people of the land called Bharata and even named the country after him. The word Bharata means one who lifts great weight. As a king, Bharata had taken up the great burden of his own people and only thought of as a king, not as a position of power to expand influence and dominate others, but as a way to enhance and enrich the life of his own countrymen. This story is at least 8,000 years old. And the right name for every person who lived in this land for generations is not Hindu, is not Sanatani, but actually Bharatiyas. The word Hindu never appears in any of the Vedic scriptures. So when this reality was put forth to a lot of Hindus, they started using the word Sanatana Dharma. But Dharma is Nitya and Sanatana. To say that it is only Sanatana is to disgrace Dharma. The Mahabharata, the Vyasa says, Uttaram yat samudrasya himadraschaiva cha dakshinam varsham tad bharatam nama bharati yatra sanskritihi. To the north of ocean and the south of Himalayas, that entire landmass is Bharata and the entire culture and tradition and people are Bharatiyas. It is also important to know that Bharata is not as much as a political entity because if you look at the story of Mahabharata, this land was divided into several kingdoms who went to war for the throne of Hastinapur. But Bharata is actually what we call in the Vedic precept as an identity based on wisdom, a wisdom that follows the Vedic precepts. In India today, we have this north and south divide which pops up once in a while. The South Indians, particularly the Tamils, say that we are even more older than the Sanskrit and the Vedic civilization. But here is something to consider. When the Mauryas were ruling the northern part of India, starting all the way from Gandhara, the modern day Afghanistan, until Cambodia to the Cambodia, and Himalayas until the Sahyadris. Below the Sahyadris were southern kingdoms which were ruled by Pandyas, Cholas, and Cheras, and many other kingdoms. Although they were two distinct political entities, they never had a border between them. And here is the most interesting thing. Both the northern Mauryas as well as the southern Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas, and Cholas call themselves as Bharatiyas. The idea of Bharat is the idea of wisdom. This land has always been open to people who are subjugated. When the Zoroastrians were subjugated by the Greeks, this land welcomed them with open arms. When Jews were persecuted every part of the world, we welcomed them as their own. In fact, India is the only nation which never persecuted the Jews. And it is the proud of it. And even Jewish nation, Israel, thanked India for that. We are the people of wisdom. We are the people of hope. And we are the people who always said, Vasudha eva kutumbakam, the whole world is one family. We never taught to divide people. We never invaded another land. We are Bharatiyas and we consider the whole world as one family. We never inculcated hate. We never transgressed any country's borders. We never destroyed civilizations. On the contrary, we have protected people who have been persecuted. This is why we are and we should be proud of Bharatiya legacy. Until next time, Pranam and Namaste.